Hi, this is Evelyn Lopez. Welcome to Sustainability in Your Ear, the EARTH911.com podcast. Now, you may have noticed that we skipped a week due to our schedules, and today's show is going to be a little bit different than our prior shows. We're trying out some new approaches to material. But as always, we'll go over some of the most interesting stories from our EARTH911 website, and we'll answer questions from you, our Earthlings. Today, I'm joined by Mitch Radcliffe. Mitch is our EARTH911 publisher, and he is in our Moonyard studios in Tacoma, Washington. Hi, Mitch. How you doing?
Good. How are you?
Pretty good. How was your week?
Oh, it was fabulous. I got to go to San Diego, even though it was for a business conference. I took my wife, and we had a nice time.
Oh, that sounds great. And also, one of our writers, Trey Granger. Trey, where are you today?
I am back in Arizona. I was in Boston over the weekend, but get to enjoy some nice 100 degrees right now.
That's good. So you're back in the dry heat rather than the damp heat?
Actually, it was pretty nice in Boston. It was only like 70 degrees, a little rainy too.
Nice. All right. And of course, we always have Doug Mackey, who is our producer, sitting in the booth. And Doug will join in if anything piques his interest. So, stories from our EARTH911.com website. What stories do y'all want to talk about this week? Trey, how about you? What are you going to talk about?
I'd love to talk about that hottest green jobs article that went live last week, as well as that pesky styrofoam and how to recycle it. And then I was curious about the one written about making recycling a part of your daily routine.
Oh, this would be great. I'd like to talk about an article that we had last week about honeybees in your home. And Mitch, how about you?
Well, I got a couple. One is we did a survey on researching the impacts of products before you buy them, and wanted to just talk briefly about that. And then there are two stories from Nature. They're not actually in our on our site, but they relate to a couple of pieces we recently published about carbon recapture and the Healthy Climate Alliance. So let's talk about those things. Excellent.
And we might also ask you a little bit about Feeding America and food waste to follow up on our interview from last week. Great. Well, Trey, why don't we start with you? Tell us about the hottest green jobs.
Yeah, so to me, green jobs are really important because it's a great way to show that this green change in our mindset is not just a trend. If we can define these jobs that are available, it starts to kind of reinforce the idea that this is a real thing that's going to keep growing in momentum. And so I actually researched what would be the big green jobs for both people who have gone into sustainability programs, as well as those that are on the outside, just having a passion of green, either wanting to restart their career or get started in general. And I identified 5 different jobs that were available, try to show the average salary, who you'd go to get those kind of jobs, what requirements are needed for them, and a brief background. And it's a nice variety. There's actually 5 different ones. Environmental engineer, which is people that help build new buildings with a green mindset. Water quality specialist, those are usually government jobs, people who are actually testing our local drinking water to make sure that it is in good enough condition for us to be ingesting. Another one that isn't really a requirement for the green background, so really evolving field, is solar power installer. People who are actually taking these panels and installing them on houses. And it's actually available in all 50 states. So it's a really growing field for those people. It's just a nice intro construction job. You also have one that's really growing in popularity over the last 2 or 3 years within the Fortune 500 space, the zero waste coordinator. People who are actually identifying ways to have companies reduce their waste, whether it's in factories as well as within their packaging. And the last one that we probably don't even think about on a green side of things is just park rangers. I mean, every state has national parks and state parks, and there are actually people that are hired to enforce the laws and conduct research and protect these protected areas. So it's a really great field for intro green passion people to get involved with.
Those are really good suggestions. On the first 2 jobs, do you need any kind of specialized education for the environmental engineer and the water quality expert?
The nice thing is with the engineering, as long as you have an engineering background, you don't really need to have something specifically in environmental. What's really interesting to me is that in 2006, it was the first time a school ever started offering environmental sustainability degrees. So it's still a growing field as far as the background education. And therefore, a lot of these companies are recognizing that if you can get the experience within your other jobs, it will relate directly to what you need. So especially with the environmental engineer and the water quality specialist as well, you can have other science backgrounds that will relate directly to those fields.
Oh, that's good. And what about the solar installer? I'm kind of dredging back in my memory. For a number of years in our state, in Washington, I represented the Department of Labor and Industries, and they were starting apprenticeship programs with solar installers, but I think they were a little too early. I don't think that there was enough work for the people who were getting that training, and it didn't really go anywhere. But it sounds like now maybe a solar installer is actually a really good career path.
Yeah, it's definitely something that you can make a lot of money because it is so strenuous. It's a very, a lot of manual labor involved. I'm not sure about the future of this one because it's really going to depend on those tariffs that are being passed in the US. A lot of solar panels are made in China. And when those tariffs get enforced, it increases the cost. And we just don't know. We haven't seen yet if people are going to stop buying solar panels as much as a result of the increased cost.
Although, on the other hand, we've got a California regulation that now requires it in all new home construction, so that might offset some of it. But I agree. I think what we're looking at is there's real growth there. We may be cutting it off because of some of our national policy, but these are jobs that are good jobs across the board. You know, they pay between $42,000 and $66,000. What do you think about if you were going to pick a major today, Trey, what would it be?
Well, see, I'm biased because the zero waste coordinator, that's what I was doing at EARTH911 for a lot of my role with the company. See a lot of interest in it, just kind of evaluating the different types of packaging we use and the benefits, the drawbacks. It's going to relate directly to what Mitch is going to talk about later about the researching product impacts before you purchase. I see it as really important. And I think a lot of people these days are contemplating why we use the materials we use, and that zero waste coordinator is super important for making those types of decisions.
Yeah, I think the other one that's going to emerge is that as we begin mining our existing economy and recycling better, because we talk a lot about recycling, and it is clear that we're not doing enough right now and the Chinese ban has certainly brought that to the fore as places are shutting down what they will accept. But I think we're going to see people who are essentially master recyclers working much more frequently in the community. Would that take a specialized degree along the lines of being a sustainability or a zero waste expert?
That one, because it's still such a new field, a lot of it is going to be based more upon getting your foot in the door with a manufacturer or a big Fortune 500 company and learning how they operate, going to their factories, that sort of stuff. So I would definitely encourage anybody who has that sort of interest to try to get internships while they're in college with these large companies and see if there's an opportunity to look at their factories, look at their design specifications, and get an understanding of how they make these decisions.
Well, that's a fantastic story to pick out. Let's move on to the next one you were talking about, which is the the 5 tips for making recycling part of your daily routine, because I also know that's something that you've focused on in your own life. This was a story by Daniel Dern, by the way.
And Daniel did a great job on this story. He actually outlined 5 different tips. Learn what's recyclable. So actually understand what goes in your curbside bin. Confirm what they will accept and when they will accept it. Identify the things that you can't recycle curbside, and then see where you can take those things. And then number 4 and number 5 is where I would focus more of my energy on, which is organizing a staging area and thinking before you head out. Yeah. Especially for me, number 4, organizing stage areas is so huge. It's something I think a lot of people forget about because they see recycling as very convenient in the sense that I have this blue bin in front of me and that's what I can recycle. You can create your own bins unlimited to take a lot of different products. You don't have to just restrict it on what goes in your blue bin. If you can make a different bin for plastic bags and batteries and scrap metal and electronics, you can start to build up that waste over time and then eventually take those products to recycle them. Before you head out, the same mindset of if you already have these bins established, you can know when you're going out to run some errands, I'm going to be driving by the Staples and such electronics. let's take these electronics with me as I go.
Yeah, I think that's a really important idea, this notion of stockpiling this stuff. It isn't just a matter of putting it in the bins each week and then mixing it up in the big blue bin at the end of the week. It could be something that you could make money off of, or at least you could help sort better so that the entire system is more efficient.
Yeah. Trey, have you come up with any kind of staging tips or methodologies that you use in your house?
My big thing is I've done what's called a waste audit, where over a week, I will just look at what I actually throw out and then try to do some research to figure out, is there a recycling market for this? One thing that, since I've been involved in sustainability for over 10 years now, whenever I talk to people at a party or someone I just meet about my career, they'll always ask me, hey, is this product recyclable? And I always have to say yes, but, because so many things are recyclable, but they want to know, can I put them in my blue bin?
Right.
And the reality is it's so different based on where you live. So the mindset is, if you do some research, and EARTH911 is a great place to start to do that research, you can then identify, here are opportunities for some great, valuable recyclables that can't go in my blue bin. One example I always use is those plastic cards you get when you check into a hotel for the key cards, or gift cards, those kind of things. You can't put those in your blue bin in 99% of American markets, but there are mail-in programs. So if you actually just put like a tiny bin in your bedroom or in your garage somewhere and just say, every time I check out of a hotel and forget to give that key card back, I'm going to put this key card in there. And then, 6 months later, I'll have enough that I can mail them in for recycling. Sure, I'll have to pay $1 or $2 to cover the postage.
Right.
But if you collect them over time, it really makes it beneficial to recycle them.
And the reason that those cards aren't recyclable is the mag strip or whatever semiconductor that they've embedded in the card becomes a contaminant.
Oh, that makes sense.
So you have to actually think about these things. And as we put more and more material into stuff, it's increasingly mixed up all the time.
Yeah.
The other thing I liked about Daniel's articles, he went through point by point for plastic bags, electronics, lightly used supplies, and so forth, what you can do with them to reuse them, as well as simply to put them in the recycling. And so a great article to pick out, Trey.
I think one of the things with doing that audit of your waste, which is a really great idea, one of the things that I'm concerned about is it's just really hard to buy things at the store that don't come in plastic of some kind. And I'm starting to worry that some of the things that I thought were recyclable that I have been popping into my bin, like the plastic cups that Starbucks drinks come in, maybe aren't actually. I need to go to the recycling facility and like talk to someone there. I mean, I really need concrete examples of, is this clamshell container recyclable? Yes or no? So that I really know which ones.
Well, what we could do too is we could answer those questions in the Earthling forums on EARTH911. So if somebody wanted to post a picture, and I'll go create a topic for this. So anybody listening, if you want to post a picture of something to get an opinion, we can share it with the community and get that information back to you quicker.
That would be fantastic.
Maybe you don't have to go to the dump.
Right, right. Well, I'll do that because I just there's been more articles on how we're unconsciously contaminating our recycling bins, and now I'm trying to become a little more sensitive to what I'm putting in there.
Yeah, and China is the reason that this is happening, because we talk about they're doing it for their own environmental reasons, but a large part of it is they just don't make as much money with contaminated materials, and so that's why they cut them by a third. They can get rid of the most contaminated stuff and make more money.
And I think on the flip side too, it's not just about thinking when you're shopping, and Mitch will probably talk about this when he's doing the story about the researching product impact. It's not just about, is this product recyclable? It's, was it made of recycled content in the first place? And that's why I would challenge manufacturers to use as much recycled content and highlight that on their labels, so then consumers can say, well, I might not be able to recycle this, but it's made of 75% recycled material. So at least I'm not throwing something in the garbage that is brand new made. It had a previous life.
Yeah. Well, actually, let's use that as a segue to the conversation about this. So we did a survey with of EARTH911's readership, and we had 61 participants respond. And we found that, so the question was, let's do that. Do you research the energy and sustainability products of a product before you purchase it? And the results were 7% said that they check out the energy impact only. 27% said that they check out sustainability impact only. 43%, good job, folks, both energy and sustainability impact. And then another 23% don't check either. So what does that mean? So there's two different phases of the acquisition of a product. There's, as Trey was just saying, determining whether or not it came from a sustainable source. Is it recycled, or is it coming from a renewable resource that's that is not negative carbon? Then there is the actual use of the product, and you may use energy while you're using the product as well as energy to make the product, and you want to look at both of those things. So if you look at the energy impact only, you might only see it took this much power to make this thing, or it only takes this much power to run this thing. But if you look at the sustainability impact, which also reaches into where it came from, how it was produced, and by factoring in energy as well throughout the life cycle of the thing, you get the real true price of the environmental impact of owning it. And what we really need are consumers who are doing this. And as your point about plastic recycling before, then giving the feedback to companies to say, I would love to continue buying your stuff, but this has to go in order for it to be to pass my audit.
Right.
And so, I'm thinking that what we should do is put together an EARTH911 guide to doing your own audits.
Oh, that's a really good idea.
Use that to put that back out for for companies to see what we're telling people they want to do.
Well, I have to admit, I have not really been in the habit of thinking about particularly the distance that an item has come.
Right.
So, for example, we were talking a few weeks ago about products in, I think it was sort of, cosmetic use type things. And it made me realize I use an olive oil, a lot of it. I use an olive oil that comes from Spain, and it's a Seattle distributor, so I felt good about that. It's in a glass container, or tin, but I tend to get the glass ones.
But it flew on an airplane.
But at some point in time, it came from Spain, right? So, I've been thinking about that, and I've been thinking, probably if I was, really committed to this, I should be sourcing and looking at olive oil that's coming from California, since it doesn't travel the same distance. Haven't made that switch yet because I really like this particular brand, but it's something I'm definitely thinking about.
Well, and so wine too. Think about, if you buy wine locally, and now there's a local wine business in many parts of the country, and if you decide to do that, you're cutting the carbon load of a bottle of wine. Now, interestingly, if you think about the way that something like Coca-Cola is set up, they only ship the syrup, but most of the actual stuff is done locally. So strangely, it's more sustainable than buying a soda from the other side of the world from a small producer, like a great root beer maker in New York. You still have to fly it to you. And so thinking about those kinds of things, there are trade-offs in terms of high quality and commodity stuff that are actually less or more efficient for or better for the environment because of how far they had to travel to get to you.
Absolutely.
So it was an interesting result. It's good to see that about half of people are looking at both of those things. And I think we need to give them more tools to do that.
I think so, too. What would you like to talk about next? You want to talk about carbon capture?
There were two stories, and these were in Nature rather than on EARTH911. But one story earlier this week found that basically we're not going to make the Paris Accord limits by 2050. And if we do, it's going to be a very close call. And so the level of sea rise, the density of carbon in the air, all of that continues to be problematic. So with that background, another story came out last week. Scientists have been looking at carbon recapture, that is, pulling carbon dioxide right out of the air. And we talked a couple of weeks ago with Peter Fikowski of the Healthy Climate Alliance about a set of projects he's working on. And these are efforts to, for instance, pull CO2 out and use it in construction materials. There's a company in Los Gatos, California called Blue Planet, and they're doing the new runways at San Francisco International Airport using recovered carbon dioxide in cement.
I would love to see that, because don't you have a hard time kind of conceptualizing how something out of the air turns into a thing?
Here, I'll show you the picture. Folks, I can't show you the picture, but it's a giant set of fans that are about four stories tall and maybe a block long. And what these are doing are pulling air across a wet solution that captures the CO2.
Amazing.
Okay, so then and there's two ways to do this, with a wet or a dry material. So in this wet material, then they take that solution inside, heat it up so that it dries. It releases the carbon dioxide, which is captured and turned into limestone.
Okay.
And you can do the same with a dry material that soaks it up, and then you get it wet to release the CO2. But what the scientists found is that, this idea that has been treated as a kind of last-ditch effort is actually economically viable, like Peter Fikowski was saying, to the degree that it's 1/3 to 1/6 the cost of what they thought it was.
Really?
And as a result, you can go ahead and start thinking about how to deploy these things commercially.
Yeah.
And they're doing it, it was interesting. Nature doesn't seem to know about Blue Planet.
Oh, that's interesting.
They talked about Climeworks, which is a European company that is, at this point, capturing CO2 at $600 a ton. Now, what they're finding is that
$600, that's not very much.
Yeah, but the problem is that we have 1 trillion tons.
Oh, okay.
So
it adds up.
That's a lot of money.
That's a lot of money.
But the thing is, if we get the price down to 1/3, 1/2, 1/10, and at commercial scale, even less, this becomes really reasonable. So they think at Climeworks they can get it below $10 a ton in 5 to 10 years.
Wow.
And I think you're seeing at Blue Planet that they're already below some of those numbers. And certainly Peter talked about others, and we're going to be doing another interview with Peter Fikowski talking specifically about carbon recapture in that sense.
Good. Yeah, I thought that interview was fascinating.
So, folks, scientists say we're not going to make it in terms of cutting our emissions. That means that we need two solutions. One is the emissions being reduced. The other is to capture CO2. And it looks like CO2 recapture is actually a viable technology. So let's talk about honeybees.
Okay, we'll talk about honeybees. I love this story. This is by Gemma Alexander. It was put on the EARTH911.com website on June 19th. And this focuses really about what to do when you sort of have honeybees that you don't particularly want to have in your yard. But anyway.
Intruders.
Unwanted guest honeybees. So I think you all know honeybees are just absolutely integral to our ecological and commercial viability because they pollinate so many of the foods that we eat, especially fruit and nut trees, but everything really. They are very sensitive to pesticides. The pesticides that have been particularly problematic are, and I'm scrolling down to make sure I say this right, it's neonicotinoid pesticides. These pesticides have actually been banned in Europe already, but they are still in use in our country. So check your in your pesticide labels. If you can avoid using pesticides, great. If you are using pesticides, if you've got a large area to cover, look very carefully at the labels. But the neonicotinoid pesticides are bad for bees. Avoid them.
And that's only one of the things that could potentially be causing the colony collapse. But getting rid of any of the factors is going to make a big difference. Yeah.
And I think the researchers think that actually some of the worst of the colony collapse we may have weathered it, but now it's a question of how do you keep things in the most healthy way so that the bees can recover.
So let's say that, 10,000 of your small buzzing friends show up in your yard. What should you do?
Right. Well, your first question, I think, is do you want to become a beekeeper? So if you have always thought you might want to become a beekeeper, there are ample resources online. There are local beekeeping organizations, and you could create a hive in your yard.
And would you want to call a beekeeper to help you do that?
I sure would.
Okay.
Yeah. I would not want to deal with a giant swarm of bees on my own.
Trying to marshal them with their hands.
No.
Go that way, guys.
No. Although, I did see if I have a friend on Facebook who is a beekeeper here in Tacoma, and he had a hive split, and he had a visual of all of him sort of shooing the bees very gently toward their new hive, and it worked beautifully.
He's a bee whisperer.
He is a bee whisperer. Yeah, he's a pretty amazing guy, actually.
So if somebody gets a swarm and thinks, I want to be a beekeeper, the thing to do is call
a beekeeper.
But you would also call them if you wanted to get rid of those. Because you want somebody to come and capture them and take them away safely. Yeah,
and there's a couple of options. I mean, there are professional beekeepers, and if you don't know who they are, you can look up online. You could also call a pest control company, but make sure you say to them, I do not want you pest control people to come and wipe out my bees. Do you happen to know the names of any local beekeepers? And chances are they do, and we'll be happy to provide those names. What I would probably do is put out a call on Facebook, frankly, because if you've got a wide enough Facebook arena, someone's going to know a local beekeeper. If they're local, they may come over and do it for free. They may build a hive, or they may just want to help you. If they're a professional beekeeper, you may want to ask them whether there's a fee charge, because there may be.
Okay.
And it really just depends.
But it's worth it to save the bees.
It's totally worth it. And one of the reasons I wanted to pick up this story was I had seen something else online over the last week that was trending, turned sort of viral. It's a little film. It's put out by the fans of Sir David Attenborough. Mm-hmm. And it's a little tip that you can use. So if you have a bee in your yard, especially a bee that looks like it might be really tired or maybe even dead, but you don't think it's dead, put out a little sugar water solution in a tablespoon. Take 1 tablespoon of water, put in 2 tablespoons of sugar, and put it out. Just put the spoon down near the bee. The bee will eat the sugar, be revived, and will go on its way. And so a spoonful of sugar keeps the bees happy. A bee revival. The other thing I wanted to mention was there are many categories of bees, but there are also mason bees. If you are growing fruit trees in your yard or a lot of vegetables that need pollination, you may want to consider mason bees. Mason bees don't live in a hive. They don't go in a group.
They build things. Yeah, they're right.
They build, that's their mason. So you need to have some nesting materials for them. These can be little pipes or a cardboard box. You need to have some mud around your yard. You don't have to keep a big mud supply, but they make their nests out of mud. And they just last a season. They don't sting, and they don't tend to swarm. Well, they don't swarm. So if you want the pollinators, but you don't want to deal with the honeybees, mason bees are another option for you.
Well, I believe that I am prepared to deal with a swarm of bees.
Are you? That's good.
And I do have mason bees, and they're very easy to make a house. You can find out how to do it online. And I'll also add to bee health is we have a bird bath. And at any time on a hot day, we always keep the bird bath, some water in there. I'll see 5 to 6 bees just drinking water out of the bird bath.
Really?
Yeah, so they need to hydrate on a hot day. We have allium and mint in the yard, which are two bee favorites and grow easily. And so we really love having bees. So
I see sleepy bees in my yard a lot. Do you see sleepy bees, or do you think that's a hydration problem?
Well, they seem to want to drink water. Now, I haven't done the sugar water thing. I love David Attenborough. I'm a big fan of his too. But I have not done the sugar. But the water, just and you just have to be mindful to keep that bird bath full.
That's great. Let's talk about styrofoam.
Let's talk about styrofoam. Trey.
Yeah. So a few things that I definitely want to point out regarding styrofoam. The first is styrofoam is a brand name. Just like when you think of tissue, we always think of Kleenex. When we think of copying things, we think of Xerox. It's not what the material is actually called. It's actually a unique term that's trademarked by Dow. And the reason I point that out is that not all things we associate with styrofoam are actually styrofoam. The actual term for it is called expanded polystyrene. Styrofoam is specifically catered to the big, bulky packaging that you find when you have like a computer where it's protecting that material. Anything like the
and tends to be formed, right?
Those are not styrofoam.
Okay.
And the second thing to be aware of is when you're dealing with recycling, we're not talking about reusing products. And when that word expanded is there, you can't unexpand polystyrene. So when we say recycling, we got to be very cautious because what we're talking about is actually shredding it and making new material. It's not something where you can just say, I can take this back to its original product, because you can't with expanded polystyrene. So
you can't break it down into the individual chemicals that it's made of at any time?
Correct.
Okay. So what do you do?
So expanded polystyrene, it's known as number 6 plastic. And as I mentioned before, expanded, it means that while you have other forms of number 6, like CD cases, the expanded form is the much more common one because it's the primary use for polystyrene. But the trick is a lot of communities will accept number 6 plastic, but they don't want EPS because, as I mentioned before, you can't break it down into the original resin. It has to be just shredded, made into more EPS. But there is a market for it. The great thing is that reuse is a very common form. A lot of shipping and and mail stores will actually accept it for reuse. You also have mail back options. There's actually an industry for the EPS called EPS-IA, the Expanded Polystyrene Industry Association, and they will actually provide a series of companies that you can mail your EPS into they actually will shred it and make new EPS out of it. But the big thing is, if you can reuse it, you definitely want to. And so the huge key is to keep it clean, and if it's at all possible, take it to a store for reuse.
So, going back to what we were talking about, having bins for various things, is that something you would set up a bin for?
Absolutely. It's definitely something where, especially if you receive a lot of things via the mail, I personally don't shop a lot via mail, so I don't have a lot of EPS in my house, but it's definitely something where I've taken a lot of it, like a bag full, to mail stores before, and they will accept it and they'll be very grateful. Now, you won't get paid for it, but it's a great way to just get it out of your house and give it a new market.
Keep it out of landfill.
Yes.
Yep. Great. Thanks.
Another thing to note on EPS, especially when it comes to packing peanuts, when we were talking before about buying stuff made of recycled content, if you can find it that is not white, the colors that are other than white, it means it's made of recycled content. So if you see it in green or pink, buy those packing peanuts, because those are actually made of recycled EPS instead of brand new content.
That's a great tip. I had never realized that. So if you look green and red, are there any other colors?
I can't think of any. I think I've seen a grayish one, but pink and green are the normal ones.
Well, so let's turn to the last story that we wanted to highlight, and that is an interview I did earlier this week, or earlier last week, with Feeding America. Feeding America is the largest food bank and food collection organization in the United States. So this is they provide 4.4 billion meals a year.
Wow.
And I did the math on that. That means that they're doing roughly 10 million meals a day in this country. And one of the things that they have launched a major campaign around is reducing food waste. Half of the food that we produce that comes out of the field or that leaves a factory where it's been processed ends up in a landfill wasted. And we need to change that in order to do two things. One is reduce the environmental load, produce less food than we waste, and the other is to make food available to more people. So Feeding America has done things like they work with Starbucks to take everything that is left over at the end of the day and give it to a local food bank. They're doing this with a lot of different companies, and with the food waste campaign, they're asking people to get involved as local volunteers to gather up more of this food, as well as to rethink the way that they plan and shop for food so that they might be able to just avoid having the waste in the first place. So we talked on the podcast with Liz Baldridge, who's the Director of Sustainability and Food Waste Initiatives at Feeding America, as well as Zuani Villarreal, who is their Director of Communications. And it's about a 15-minute conversation. You'll learn what you can do in terms of your own action and how you can support Feeding America. But these guys are doing great work. And just the idea that 21% of the stuff in our landfills each year is unused food is startling, and we need to change that. So take a listen to the podcast from Monday, which would have been or actually last Monday, so it would have been the 23rd, if I remember correctly. Maybe the 22nd? Something. It's one of those days.
It's the most recent interview on the website.
And but it's a great conversation, and I urge everybody to pay attention.
Great. Well, let's cover reader questions.
Okie doke.
Do you want to start with Tracy in orange, or shall I try to pronounce that very difficult term?
I'm sure that that's an unpronounceable term, but I'll go. I'll go. Tracy in Orange, California, said that she has she or he, I actually don't know, had a tenant at a rental house that left behind a big metal cylinder labeled dichlordifluoromethane, UN-1028. And it comes from a company, Raycon Incorporated, that is no longer in business. So Tracy did some research. So the question is, what do we do with this? Do you have any suggestions about how to recycle it? The Orange County Household Hazardous Waste Program would not accept the item. And so many of the normal paths of getting rid of a canister like this are out of reach for Tracy.
Yeah. So
what is it?
Yeah. What did you find out about this?
Well, dichlordifluoromethane is freon, and particularly a version of freon called Freon 12.
Wow.
That was banned by the Montreal Accord in 1996.
Wow, so that canister's been around for a while.
It's been sitting around for a while, and it's full of bad stuff. Great. So, we generally would urge somebody who had a canister to release the material before they sent it in for recycling. But you don't want to do this in this case. This is this is actually really bad for the environment. So we did some searching in the Orange County area to find solutions, and there are very few. But there is a company called Cylinder Depot Incorporated that specializes in disposing of gas cylinders, and so that's what we recommend that Tracy do. Give them a call. There's several locations in the area. The one in Orange, California itself seems to be the best one of the three. One of the other has an EPA warning against it, which we'll also be dealing with in the next question. So if you've got some dichlordifluoromethane, UN-1028, see, I'm getting it now, don't let that stuff out. And find a specialist. And a household hazardous program is not the right place to take this. This is an industrial material. It's a chemical that shouldn't be handled by somebody who is not a specialist.
Wow. All right. Well, that's some good advice. That would be horrifying to find that in a rental house that you had. All right. Well, our next question, Tim in Wauseon, Ohio asks, where can I find someone that recycles fluorescent bulbs in my zip code?
This is it's not a hard question. First off, use the EARTH911 search, and you'll find a number of options. But we want to make a call for additional steps for people who use our database, because sometimes, and we had this reported just recently, a company in our database is responsible for roughly 2 to 3 million bulbs being left out, contaminated with mercury, and so has been shut down.
Oh, dear. And
this is one of the organizations that was found by Tim. And so we want to caution people that they should call ahead and do a little research on even the things that we have in the database, because with 200,000 locations, it's hard for us to keep up. And if you find something out, please send us a message or sign up to change the database yourself. You can do that. So it's something anybody can do if they want to add to the database, is get an account. But just send us a message at support@earth911.com, and we'll update anything that you find. So in the case of Tim, check out the list, but also check out the destinations we point you at. That's one of the things that in this very rapidly changing recycling environment because of China and all the other things going on with trade in our country, you need to start, even with the material that we curate, we have to check it more frequently than we do. So use the research, make sure you go to a good facility, and you'll be fine with your fluorescent bulbs.
Yeah, I think that's really good advice. Even if you live someplace that has a really good recycling center, as we do here in Tacoma, I have been getting in the habit of either calling or going to check things out, because we're in a really fluid arena, as you've said a couple of times. Things that you could recycle last year may not be as easily recyclable this year.
Or even last month.
Or even last month. Yeah, so it is a matter of, find the places that look likely and then check them out.
Well, that's it. We did another full week of conversation.
Excellent. So,
Excellent.
If you have any thoughts or suggestions, you can always send us an email at feedback@earth911.com, and you can listen to us on iTunes, SoundCloud, Spreaker, and of course at our earth911.com website. And
thanks, Trey.
I think Trey's gone.
Yeah, he is.
Well, thanks, Mitch.
Oh,
he's there. Okay, good. All right. Well, thanks, everyone, and we'll talk to you again next week.
Take care, all.